They say if you want quiet, you keep your distance from people. My family's been doing exactly that for more than 130 years. The Hawks property stretches across 1,400 acres at the southern edge of Bladen County, right where pine woods thin out into soybean fields under heavy skies. I was born here, same as my father and grandfather, and I expect I'll die here too, just not from a stroke after reading an HOA bill for $100,000. But we'll get to that. First, the barn. I've run this place alone since my father passed a dozen years ago. It's not just me, though. I lease sections to 2 farm companies, let beekeepers work the eastern side, and on weekends I run a repair shop for nearby farmers. Last year, after saving long enough, I finally did something for myself. I built a barn. Not a little shed, big steel, concrete-based structure tough enough to house my case tractor and the crop spraying drones I've been testing. On the far south edge of my land sits what used to be old timberland. About 10 years back, a developer paved it over into a subdivision called Pinewood Summit. 80 look-alike beige houses, cul-de-sacs named after birds, all policed by a homeowners association that thinks it runs the world. My barn went up about 400 feet from that border, well inside my boundary. To be sure, I even brought in an old surveyor buddy. We checked every stake. I even joked, watch, they'll say I built too close to their yoga studio. Back then, it was funny. Now, not so much. 3 weeks after the roof was finished, a letter arrived in a cream envelope with a pinecone logo. Addressed to me, it claimed I had violated Pinewood Summit's architectural conformity standards. According to them, my barn counted as an unauthorized structure that broke their design code. Penalty, $100,000, due in 2 weeks. I thought it was spam at first, until I saw the signature. Karen Willoughby, president of Pinewood Summit HOA. I never met her, but everyone knew the name. Around here, she was Queen Pine. She once fined a guy for leaving a garden hose visible. Another time, she forced someone to take down Halloween decorations for not being seasonally neutral. She was the sort who made you grateful your land wasn't under HOA control, which, to be clear, mine wasn't. So I called. Got voicemail. I left a polite message. Must be a mistake. I don't belong to any HOA. My land's been on a separate plat since 1891, with deeds and maps and taxes to prove it. 2 days later, she showed up in person. I was out back working on the tractor when I heard tires crunch on gravel. Out stepped a black Lexus. She climbed out in high heels that didn't belong anywhere near dirt, sunglasses fit for a runway, clipboard tucked under her arm. 2 men followed, one in khakis and an HOA polo, the other rolling a measuring wheel. "Mr. Hawks," she called. "Who's asking?" I said, wiping oil off my hands. "I'm Karen Willoughby. You've received our correspondence." "I did," I answered, glancing at her companions. "You brought friends." "We're here to confirm setback violations," she replied, like she was leading a federal raid. "This structure encroaches on Pinewood Summit's boundary and disrupts visual harmony." "This structure is on my property," I said flatly, "and I couldn't care less about your harmony." She tilted her head, smiling like I was a child who just cursed. "You may not realize it, Mr. Hawks, but the land south of your barn was annexed into our development zone back in 2016 under Sierra Group's expansion plan. Your acreage was classified as unclaimed and therefore subject to our architectural review." I let that hang for a beat. My family's held this land since Grover Cleveland was president. I have the deed framed in my office. Taxes paid every year. And you're saying my barn's a violation on my own property because you've decided it belongs to you. "It's not about feelings," she said. Karen tapped her clipboard like it was a gavel. "It's about community standards." "This isn't your community," I shot back. She didn't blink. Instead, she told her measuring guy, "Start from the eastern post." He moved forward, but I stepped in front of him. "You've got one chance to turn around," I said evenly. "Roll that will pass the line, and I'm calling the sheriff." Karen held my gaze, then smiled that syrupy smile again. "You have 14 days, Mr. Hawks." And just like that, they left. That night, I laid out every deed, map, and tax record I had, then called my attorney. I knew this wasn't about a barn anymore. 4 days later, another letter arrived. Thicker stock, glossy finish, embossed pine cone like some royal crest. A nervous kid delivered it, handed it over without a word, then bolted. Inside, another notice from Karen, citing Pinewood Summit Residential Expansion Code, Section 7. The fine had already jumped to $110,000, this time for visual disruption, structural obstruction, and non-participation in arbitration. Translation: I hadn't shown up to their HOA meeting. They'd even attached minutes from their board session. My name came up 9 times. Karen had asked for authority to use enforcement mechanisms up to and including lien placement and seizure. I laughed so hard I almost burned the letter. But beneath the comedy, I felt the danger. They were treating this like it was real law. I called my lawyer, Ron. These people are either crazy or dangerous. Both, he said. And stupidity grows teeth if you ignore it. We'll answer formally. In the meantime, get another survey. So I called Todd Wheeler, the same surveyor who'd helped me mark fence lines years ago. Todd showed up with 2 trucks, a junior tech, and enough coffee to keep a platoon awake. For 2 days, they ran drones, GPS, soil markers, checking every post my grandfather set in the 60s. On the 3rd day, Karen returned. No pretense this time, just parked halfway down my drive and marched toward Todd, clipboard ready. I'm with Pinewood Summit HOA, she announced. We request immediate access to measure encroachment. This survey is unauthorized and subject to injunction. Todd stared at her like she was babbling nonsense. Ma'am, unless you've got a judge's order in that purse, you're trespassing. County records are clear. This land has 0 connection to your subdivision. Karen puffed up. You're operating under false assumptions. The Sierra Group acquired these parcels in 2016, incorporated into our master plan. Todd cut her off. Not this one. Track 17, Plot C, registered 1891. Hawks family, taxes paid, unbroken chain. You're trespassing. She opened her mouth, shut it, then turned on her heel and left. That night, I dug into Sierra Group's development filings. Their maps were a mess, bloated zones, half of them never approved by the county. They'd basically tried to grab anything that looked empty. My land wasn't part of it. I pulled 30 years of tax records under the Hawks name. Agricultural designation going back to the Dust Bowl. Ironclad. Ron drafted a cease and desist, attaching copies of my deed, Todd's survey, GPS data, and county maps. We mailed it certified to the HOA, Sierra Group, and Karen herself. The next morning, Todd's trailer tires were slashed. He just shook his head. These clowns think they're gangsters. That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. It was a fight. 3 days later, Todd stormed back, red-faced, map under his arm. He spread it across my shop table, weighing the corners with wrenches. We've got a situation. He pointed to a cluster of rectangles. That's Pinewood Summit. 9 of their houses, including the HOA office, are sitting on your land. I just stared. Jesus, how does that even happen? Bad overlays, maybe fraud, Todd said. He showed me aerial images year by year, slow creep at first, then full builds. 30% of that subdivision is on your property, and some lots haven't even sold yet. I sat back, heart hammering. They find me for building a barn on my own soil. Meanwhile, they paved sidewalks over mine. We both fell silent. My anger was cold, heavy, the documenting kind. Over the next 2 days, I pulled every plat, every zoning record, every hand-drawn map my grandfather left behind. My cousin at the Department of Natural Resources dug up Sierra's early filings. All of it pointed to the same truth. This wasn't an error. Sierra had knowingly expanded past its legal boundary. Someone had doctored the zoning maps to cover it up. Ron nearly spilled his coffee when he saw the evidence. This isn't HOA games. This is corporate fraud. You got leverage now. He filed a legal notice of encroachment, freezing any further development or sales on the disputed land. That night, a note appeared in my mailbox. Block letters on yellow legal pad. You push this and we push back. Stop digging. I showed it to Ron. Sheriff, he asked. I shook my head. Let them bluff. Still, I installed new lights, a trail cam, and then I called in backup. My buddy Mike Lerner, ex-state attorney's office in Raleigh. Mike owed me a favor. Years back, I helped him dig out a flooded irrigation line during a hurricane, and I never let him forget it. So when I called, he connected me with a forensic land use analyst. Yes, that's a real profession. The guy was 60, dressed like an accountant, and carried a portable scanner as if it held nuclear launch codes. 3 days later, his verdict landed like a hammer. 9 homes either fully or partly on my land, plus 2 sidewalks for driveways, the entire HOA office, and a future community park. They were planning to put a playground in the middle of my soybeans. I called Ron. Tell me we can burn it all down. He chuckled. Not yet. But we can start striking matches. When intimidation and fines didn't work, they tried charm poorly. A week after our legal notice circulated, I got a knock at sunset. Expecting the sheriff, I instead found Karen Willoughby holding a Tupperware dish. Apple cobbler, she chirped, dressed like a lifestyle blogger. She pitched it as a fresh start. Let's be neighbors, Brandon. Small gathering, light refreshments, no lawyers. I took the cobbler, shut the door without a word, then called Ron. It's starting. He told me to play along, smile, attend, sign nothing. 2 nights later, I walked into Pinewood Summit's clubhouse. Fittingly, it sat 30 feet onto my property. Inside looked like a Pottery Barn showroom. Soft jazz, wine, cheese boards. Karen greeted me like a senator on campaign, touching my elbow as she handed me a glass. We just want resolution, she said sweetly. On a table sat a clipboard marked Community Dialogue Attendee Acknowledgement. I skimmed the fine print. Consent to ordinances, compliance reviews. A trap dressed as a sign-in sheet. Is this required? I asked. Of course not, she said quickly. Good. I smiled, folding it into my pocket. Then I produced my own clipboard. Earlier, Ron had drafted a letter to the county prosecutor outlining forgery, encroachment, and requesting investigation. Already signed by me, just needed a witness. I slid it toward Karen. I've got one for you too, for transparency. She barely glanced at it before signing. 2 board members followed suit. I thanked them for the wine, pocketed the papers, and left before dessert. The next morning, Ron almost spat coffee across the courthouse steps. He got her to acknowledge the complaint she swore she never received, dated, in her handwriting. The DA's going to frame this. With that, we filed the whole bundle with the prosecutor. Combined with the earlier forged deed supposedly signed by my dead grandfather, the picture was damning. Karen stopped smiling after that. Her lawyer called, begging for mediation, even floating a settlement. We declined. Now it wasn't about being right, it was about proving a crime. Then everything exploded. The Department of Land Resources launched an investigation into Sierra Group and Pinewood Summit's permits. 2 zoning officials were subpoenaed. One quit, another got caught trying to backdate a plat, which nearly triggered a state audit. Ron called the morning the suit was officially filed. Congratulations, he said. We're not in HOA court anymore. This is civil land seizure in Superior Court and the DA's tagging on criminal fraud. Against Karen? I asked. Against everyone. But she's the cherry on top. Our complaint listed it all: encroachment, forgery, malicious prosecution, attempted fraud. We demanded recognition of my title, demolition of illegal structures, compensation for damages, and full criminal investigation into Karen and her allies. Karen responded with a press conference on a Sunday, staged right in front of the HOA office, on my land. She stood at a podium, tears in her voice, painting herself as a defender of community dreams. She accused me of destroying hopes, holding Pinewood Summit hostage with outdated maps and bitterness. Someone sent me the clip. I nearly choked laughing. But public opinion didn't swing her way. Not once our side released the maps, deeds, forged documents, and most damning, video of Karen signing my prosecutor letter at that wine and cheese night. It went viral under the headline, Karen signs her own arrest warrant. Even local news picked it up. By the time we stepped into court, her once proud board had shrunk to a nervous huddle. Her lawyer looked sleepless. Mine walked in calm, boots polished, chewing his pen like a cigar. The judge, a granite-faced veteran, heard Ron first. He laid out the evidence: maps, GPS logs, tax records, the forged deed, and finally Karen's signature. He ended with, Your Honor, the defendants didn't just trespass. They tried to rewrite reality to steal land. This was a hostile act disguised in khakis and block parties. Then it was Karen's turn. Her lawyer droned on about good faith development, urban growth, and misunderstandings. At one point, he floated the idea that my grandfather may have verbally gifted the land before his death, an argument so absurd the judge coughed into his sleeve. Finally, Karen spoke. Since you want the continuity tight, I'd suggest blending the courtroom, demolition, arrest, and resolution into one unbroken escalation, climax, aftermath, all in the same gritty first-person voice you've been using. That way, it reads like one breathless account rather than broken chunks.